I'm Michael Salisi. I'm the police chief here in Stow, and I thank everybody very much for coming out tonight and to watch what our presentation is. I got to tell you, back in October of this year, I went to a conference, the International Association of Chiefs of Police Conference, and I had an opportunity to see Tamia and Tim Woods talk about their son, and it was a packed room. It was a very moving presentation, and it was about their son being sextorted. And I can tell you from my 20 plus years with the Stow Police Department that this is something that continues here in Stow. It's happened. I've seen it as long ago as 2009, 2010, different versions of this. And it does happen here. And I wanted everybody to have the value that I received from them. It is a powerful, impactful story. And at the end, they're more than willing to take questions from anybody here. I really appreciate you guys coming out all the way from Ohio. I appreciate that. It was a collaboration that we were able to do with the library, the Stow Police Department, and the Randall Library. And I'm very thankful for that, so thank you very much. And I hope you guys, get a lot out of this. I know I did, and we'll see you guys at the end.
Hello?
Oh, there we go. How are you all doing today? That is good. So we'd like to start off asking a couple of questions just to lighten the mood because it does get a little dark. But we'd like to know what you all, what level you are on the understanding of sextortion. And a lot of times we have as humans, out of sight, out of mind, or it doesn't apply to us. And so we just like to get you all in that setting where if it happened to Tim and I, it could happen to any one of you guys. So with that being said, first, did you all get to see the eclipse at all? Yes, you did. I was in the hotel room working. But that's good. So my first question to you all, how many of you all have kids? How many of you do? Nieces, nephews? Yes. And I know us as parents, right, we try our best to make sure that we put them on a path to succeed, right? How many of you guys attend their track meets or basketball meets? Who's the loudest one on the field? Me? I am. Do you all know what sextortion is? Raise your hand if you know. All of you. So I know some of you are counselors, so you're not allowed to answer. So who is willing to be vulnerable with me and give your definition of sextortion? No one? Okay, good.
I actually don't know what it officially means, but I can, based on it, make an assumption that it's kids being lured into, or anyone actually, regardless of age, being lured into a situation where they think it is okay, or maybe they're threatened and it ends up not being exactly what it should be on the other end.
Good answer. Anyone want to add on to it? No? Okay. So we'll get into there's two parts of sextortion. So there's a traditional part, which Chief probably sees a lot of the traditional, and that is really geared towards our young women, right? You may see revenge porn. You may see where they're going after a lot of our teenage young women, 14, 17 years of age. These type of people are typically pedophiles, and they use it for self-gratification or to sell it on the dark web. James was a part of financial sextortion. Did you guys know it was two different types of sextortion? So James was a part of financial sextortion, and we will tell James' story. But that is where they target our young boys. So that is between the ages of 14 and 17. Also, it can go all the way down to 10. Have you 10, right, Tim?
8.
8 years old. And what they do is they get our young men into compromising positions, exposing themselves, and then they will try to extort them for money. Okay? We'll give you some examples later on. We'll take a deeper dive, but those are the two types of sextortion. Before Tim takes over, do you have any questions for them at all?
No. Nope.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Well, Chief did introduce us, but my name is Tamia, and this is Tim, and we are James' parents. So we would like to tell you a little bit about James.
Good evening, everyone. I see. Okay. But good evening, everyone. We're from the Do It for James Foundation. We had something happen in our lives to where we decided to stand up and speak about it and try to help other people. We named the foundation after our boy. As you can see, he was a handsome guy. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how he got here and his upbringing. My wife and I got together in 2004, and it was a good time. We had fun. And as you know, when two people get together and have too much fun, they produce children. So our son was born July 23rd, 2005, 9:38 a.m. It's the happiest day of my life. I was happy. I had a smile on my face. I called all my friends. It was great. And the whole time she was in the bed screaming and but it was a good day. We took him home, after a few days at the hospital. Introduced him to his dog. We had a dog named Thor. She was a black and white pit bull. James and her became best friends. They did everything together. They crawled around the floor together. They slept together. They got in all the food in the refrigerator and pantry together. They had a good time. And his whole childhood, him with her, it was just nothing but fun memories. James started, walking on 2 feet. He was running around the house, dogs running around with him. They're tripping over each other. They're having a good time. And the whole time, I was just sitting there letting it happen. I was having fun, just seeing my boy grow up happy. Because as parents, we want our children to be happy. We want them to grow, experience things throughout life. And Tamia and I, we had to make sure that he had the best life possible. Because shortly after he got a little older, we found out he would be the only child that we could ever have. We couldn't have any more children. So, with that being said, we knew we had to make sure that we did everything right, because we only got one chance.
We wanted to stay out the nursing home.
Yeah. Don't want the nursing home. But we had to make a few changes. We accepted that we wasn't going to have any more children, which was okay with us. We had a beautiful baby boy, and we had each other. We went to work. While I was at work on third shift, she was at home with the baby. They slept very nicely. When I came home in the morning, she would hand me the baby and walk out the door. 7 a.m. in the morning, I'm coming home after a 12-hour shift of work every day, and this nice woman here walks out the door wide awake and leaves me a baby who is nothing but rested. And that was our life for a lot of years at the beginning. She went to school also during the day, and we did this because we didn't trust anybody with our child. We didn't want to pay a babysitter to take care of him, and he couldn't articulate what was going on while we weren't around. So I worked third shift, she worked day shift, and we did that for more years than I could count. I didn't like it at first, but I knew it was something that was best because we wanted to make sure our child had the best life. She started getting a higher education. She started making more money at her job. I switched jobs. I started making more money at my jobs. We made sure that James had all the clothes he could need, all the toys. We made sure he always had a roof over his head. We made sure he always had food in his belly. We made sure that the dog was happy also because, they were a package deal. We couldn't do anything with one without doing it for the other. They were lovely together. After so long, James got to the point where he started taking an interest in other things outside of playing with the dog. Turns out he loved video games. I play video games all the time. While I'm sitting there, he's sitting right next to me, and he's playing video games with the joystick thinking he's controlling the characters on the TV. Took me too long to notice that I could have just gave him a joystick and let him actually play the game, and I could have had a babysitter while I got some sleep in the morning. But he loved video games. Turns out he also loves sports. I played sports my whole life. I'm watching them on TV, he's watching them too. Didn't matter what sport it was, he loved them. He loved basketball, he loved baseball, he loved track and field, he liked the wrestling, gymnastics. It didn't matter, he liked them all. When I went out with my friends, I'd take him with me. He's running down the field with a football in his hand while we're playing. When we went to play basketball, he's running into the middle of the court while we're running up and down. He loved it. And I loved that he loved it. I didn't push him to like anything. I let him choose whatever it was he wanted. His mom, on the other hand, she pushed him to do all the reading, the books, and, I was the cool parent. But his childhood was filled with a lot of happiness. His mother and I, we had the hard part. We just had to make sure we did everything right. We lived in a certain neighborhood. It wasn't the best. So James couldn't really go outside and make friends because it was a very bad crime-ridden place. When we finally started making enough money, we moved him to a better neighborhood. He got a better education from that neighborhood also. All that reading that his mom had him doing paid off. All the teachers would say, he's a very intelligent boy. The words that he used weren't the same as all the other kids his age. So at an early age, we saw that a lot of the things that we were doing for him, it put him a step ahead of other people his age. And because of his birthday, him being born in the summertime, he was always the youngest person in his classes. So here he is, the youngest person in his classes, but at the same time, he's always been taller than everyone. He was taller than me too, and that happened by the age of 14, 15. I was very upset, but that's a different story. As James got older, he eventually started playing sports. He'd go out with his cousins all the time, go out with his friends, and they're at the basketball court. They're running up and down the street. They're having fun. He'd come home. Some of his friends would come with him. They'd spend the night at each other's house. They had fun. That's all I wanted. As long as he didn't get in much trouble at school, I was happy. Eventually, a time came when Tamia got offered a position in a whole nother city. we had to move. I found another job, and we had to take James with us. He had to start his life all over. He thought that his life was going to be over. He was leaving behind all his friends and family because the place that we moved into was 2 hours away. We told him, we're going to make sure that you always have the people in your life that you want. You want your friends in your life? He said yes. We said, we'll always take you down to see them or bring them up here so that they can see you. That's what we did. We would drive from Columbus, Ohio to Cleveland, Ohio with a group of his friends, and they would stay either at our place or he would stay down there for weeks at a time, sometimes a month. We didn't mind because we...
The longest we did, we had 8 boys and 45 days. We kept them for 45 days. And I had to kick them out because I couldn't afford groceries anymore.
Yeah, anybody that feeds a lot of people, you know the bill adds up very quickly. Yeah. And you got 8 growing boys, all young teenagers. They're eating more than the dog. But that's what we did. We made sure he kept in contact with all the people that he was close to. People that he grew up with from a very young age. He had cousins that he grew up with. They were all his best friends. He liked people. He was a people person. He liked everyone. His teachers. You know, we go and talk to the school on conference day. They're telling us James is a pleasure to have in class. He doesn't cause problems. He's quiet. He's not the class clown. I love hearing that because my mom heard a different story when she was taking me, and I was happy that I didn't have to hear the stuff that she did. But he could have did better with his grades, but at the same time, he still had decent grades. He'll let him slip every now and then. His mom would get on him. Then I had to come in and separate the 2 of them because one of them was going to get hurt. And she's a strong woman. But he, for the most part, though, his grades were always good enough to where he moved to the next grade. He, mostly B's. So.
He used to say C's got degrees.
But he did his work. Turns out we didn't notice at the time that he was helping other people with their work too. A couple of his friends were struggling in geometry. James, turns out, was tutoring them. As we was going through his phone, we noticed that these people were saying that because of James, they got perfect scores on their tests. I was like, oh, man, that's nice. How come James only got like a 78 or something? You know, I didn't understand it. But he was always helping people. You know, he ran track pretty much all year round. In the fall time, he did cross country. In the wintertime, he did indoor track. In the springtime, he did outdoor track. School let out, summertime. In the summer, he'll put his headphones on and he's running around the neighborhood. Everybody knew him. All his neighbors, on their Ring cameras, they could see him running down the street, waving at everyone, smiling. Some people he would stop and talk to. Our neighbors right next door to us, it's an 80-year-old couple. They knew James. They liked James. James would stop and talk to him if he saw him out in the driveway. Have long conversations. What a young kid like him would have to talk to with 80-year-old people, I don't know. But they used to tell us all the time, he's just so adorable. He's so mannerable. I like him. And other people would say the same thing. You know, his friends, he'd go over their house, they have parties, they're having a good time. They're coming up to Tamia later like, you know, your son will be a good guy for my daughter. I'm not sure if that's normal, but that's who he was. It didn't matter who you were, you would like him. He was a person who liked everyone. He'd go up to you, he'd look you in the eye, he'd shake your hand, say, "Hi, my name is James." He'd start a conversation with you. He didn't believe in strangers. He just believed that you're people he hasn't met yet. And that's who he was. He was a helper. He was friendly. He was mannerable, respectful. If you had a problem, he'd try to help you. And that's from the day he was born, that's all he ever did. My wife would tell you he tried to cook us food sometimes.
He burnt our microwave. He was trying to make his dad some noodles and forgot the water. He loved his dad.
But
Dad could do no wrong.
He was a helper. It didn't matter who you were, though. Like I said, it didn't matter who you were. After you'd known him just for a couple minutes, you always remembered who he was. And his friends, they loved him too. You know, after he was gone, they'd come over to the house still and talk to us and say, "Hey, I remember James did this and that." You know, they'll fill us in on little stories that we heard throughout his life that we never knew the whole story of. And we're like, man, he was an awesome guy. You know, as parents, we look at our children and we get an idea of them. But when we hear other people have the same idea that you would have, you find out you're not being biased. It's an actual fact. We love to hear good things about our children. We love to see our children growing, learning, having fun, experiencing life in a positive way. As it turns out, though, the world isn't all positive. Everybody pretty much has a cell phone or a computer, laptop, whatever the case may be. And they're all pretty much attached to the internet. James, he loved the internet. He loved TikTok. He loved Instagram. He loved Discord. Instagram was his favorite. And a lot of the stuff that he followed on Instagram, I followed also. Because we liked a lot of the same things. You know, if there was a new anime out, he'd come running into my room. "Dad, did you see such and such yet?" And I'm like, "No." He'd be like, "Well, watch this." And he'll pull it up for me. And we watch it together a lot of times. He loved comic books. He loved movies. He loved a lot of the things that I like. And they were all on the internet for him to watch on YouTube. Turns out, though, a lot of the people that he would come across while on the internet weren't good people. One night, he was on Instagram. And it was shortly after 7 p.m., and he was contacted by a young woman. Doesn't know who she is, but he thought she was attractive, so when she contacted him, he responded. They started to get to know each other. About 8 minutes or so into asking all the normal questions: how old are you? What school you go to? Do you have a job? Where do you live? You know, normal things that people ask when they're dating. She asked him if he could go to a private location. He did so, and then they got on video chat together so they could physically see who they're talking to. It's better than looking at a picture. You're face to face pretty much. She then asked him if he would like to see her topless. Him being a 17-year-old boy, looking at a woman that he finds highly attractive, of course he said yes. So she took off her top, exposed herself completely. Then she asked if he wanted to see the rest of her. Again, he said yes. What's the harm? He's just looking, right? So after she did so, she then said, "Now it's your turn." Again, he's thinking, what's the harm? This person did it first. I know her. She's a nice person. She created that safe space for him. So he exposed himself from the waist down. Shortly after doing so, he received a message. And in this message, it's a big old picture of him. The words under it said, "This is you in all your glory." He didn't know what was going on. He had to stop and ask, what is this? Where did you get this from? While they were in the video, this person took a screenshot of the video of him to let him know, "We have pictures of you." Then they said, "We're going to share this with the world. We're going to put it all over social media." And then they started naming the sites that they were going to use: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Discord, a couple of others. They said they were going to make sure the world knew who James was. James didn't know what to do. He didn't know what to say. He kept asking, "Why are you trying to do this to me?" They didn't give him any answers. They went on mentally torturing him for a number of hours, saying how they were going to plaster his picture everywhere. Then they started telling him how they were going to destroy his life. They were going to get him kicked out of school. They were going to get him labeled a pedophile for sending pictures. They were going to get him thrown in jail. They were going to make sure he didn't get into college. He wouldn't be able to get a job. His friends wouldn't love him anymore. His family wouldn't love him anymore. They told him they was going to ruin his life. They told him that they own him. They told him everything you could tell a person to make them feel sad, sorry, miserable. They created the depression in him. After a number of hours of telling him all of those things, they finally came up with a solution. They said, "If you pay us $6,000, we'll make these pictures go away." 17-year-old kids don't have $6,000. So, after he told them that numerous times, they said, "All right, make it $300. He said, "Okay." He didn't have $300 either, but he figured he could come up with the money. James wound up paying him a little over $100 and some gift cards. But it wasn't enough. "Where's the rest of my money? Go get the rest of my money. We need our money." James was in a position where he couldn't really do anything. He didn't know what to do. He even got online and tried to Google how to get a page shut down on Instagram. He couldn't come up with any answers. All of this happened on November 18th and November 19th. James was in a position where he didn't know what to do. He was beaten. He was sad. He didn't know who to talk to about what was going on in his life. I went to work Saturday morning. I come downstairs at 4-something in the morning. I had to be to work at 5 a.m. Saturday morning, November 19th. I saw James sitting at the island eating breakfast. He was wide awake. He was fully dressed. He had his phone in his hand. It didn't strike me as odd because he's always up on the weekends at odd hours, playing video games with his friends. I've seen it for a number of years, so I didn't think anything of it this time. But this particular day on November 19th, he and his mother were going to a college fair. I figured he was just up and ready to go because it started early in the morning. I talked to him, told them, hey, have a good time, take in everything, talk to everyone there, see what they have to offer. You know, I gave him a whole bunch of words of encouragement. I told him I was proud of him. He was going to college. He was choosing his future. I told him, you're doing something that I didn't do. I was happy. I went to work with a big old smile on my face. I'm at work all day. I called him to remind him about his haircut appointment that he had. He said, okay, no problem. Later on that day, he got his hair cut, and I got off work at 6 p.m. I come home after a long day's work, go into my house. The dogs are there. They greet me as usual. I walk through the house, and eventually I get to a room in the house that had a light on. This light shouldn't have been on because to me it wasn't there. And it wasn't my son's room, and the dogs don't use the room. I go in, open the door, and I see my son laying on the floor. I'm thinking he's asleep because he falls asleep in all places throughout the house all the time. But after I fully open the door and step into the room, I could see that my son isn't just asleep. He's no longer here physically. I didn't know what to think. I noticed he got his hair cut. He was fully dressed still. He had his phone with him. I didn't know what was wrong, but I knew my son wasn't here. I screamed his name. I dropped to the floor and crawled over to him. I laid on him, crying. It was the worst feeling I had ever in my life. After laying there for a few minutes, I realized there's one person that doesn't know about this. I had to pull out my phone and call my wife, James's mother, Tamia Woods, and let her know that the only child that we will ever be able to produce in this world is no longer here. And I couldn't tell her why.
This sucks. That night, I begged the cops to tell me where I went wrong. I begged them. I said, you had to tell me where did we go wrong and why my son is not here. Because everything you tell someone to do when raising a child, we did. We gave him a 2-parent household. We told him we loved him every day. I gave my son hugs every day. I told him he was wonderful. I reassured him he could do whatever he wanted to do in life. I kept him off of the streets. I kept him away from drugs. I kept him away from alcohol. And you mean to tell me that my son is gone and I need to know why? I didn't know. Later on that night, we had access to James' phone. We had his code. We gave it to the police. And then we decided to do investigation on our own. We found, Tim pulled the phone records, and we found a number that wasn't what we recognized because, as we stated earlier, we had a close relationship with James and his friends. We even had it on group text messages. This phone number was weird. So we texted them, and they immediately sent us a picture of James unclothed. They started to try to extort us. We were like, what the heck is going on? We found out James was sent 200 messages in 19 and a half hours. 200 messages, one of them including I am more determined to rot your life than to make it a waste, a trash can, a shame, a dishonor, a hell, a real disaster, a hell on earth. And also I remind you that I am heartless. I have no pity to rot a life as well as yours. That's one text message. Every single symptom and sign of suicide. My son had 0 on November 18th that morning. November 19th, the day that he passed away, he had every single sign. They instilled suicidal thoughts. They told him he might as well end it now. Kill yourself. These people are evil. And all they want is money. And the one thing we knew nothing about sextortion, took my son to where I cannot buy him Granny Smith apples. I cannot buy him brown sugar Pop-Tarts. And I freaking go through my messages and listen to recordings over and over and over just to hear his voice. This sucks. And they target our kids. My son sent them a little over $100. Do y'all know how much $100 is in Nigeria? Anyone want to guess? $91,000. Most of these sextortion cases that happen come from Nigeria. My son's murderers are in Ivory Coast. They still haven't been captured. There were 4 people attacking my son at one time for 19 and a half hours. And he was searching, trying to find an answer and trying to fight it himself. And never once did we know anything about it. We didn't have one red flag. I was literally dancing with him to the tunes of the band playing early that morning. I told him I was proud of him, and I knew he could do it when he told me the 3 colleges he wanted to go to that afternoon. I had one of the best days of my life and the worst day of my life all in one. Tim and I, we refused to let you guys feel the way that I do. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy because I want my son back so bad, and I can't have him back. But how can you fight against something you don't know? You can't. And that's why we're here today. And that's why we thank you. Because each and every time that your kid is alive another day, it helps my son shine bright. We got to talk to each other. We got to lift each other up. And we have to tell our kids that no matter what, no matter the circumstance, they have to come to us. Because everybody has a bad day. And they need us to lift them up. That is our job as parents, is to correct their mistakes. And I no longer get to correct my son's mistakes. Boy, I want to so bad. That's why we created those tip cards. It's an exact directions on what they can do if they're ever in a similar or same situation as James. James was Googling how to figure out how to get an Instagram page shut down. We don't want your kids to fight through those problems while they're being attacked. We have the answers for you. And I can assure you that they work. Tim and I will be getting an award from the FBI on April 19th on the community work that we're doing. These cards are universal. And the kids have been self-reporting using those cards. They work. We tell kids all the time they matter. You know, if you ask your kid if they matter, 25% will say yes. Our kids don't get told they loved them a lot. We make sure that we tell them. We no longer get to tell James. We have to tell them that no matter what, and we have to help them identify that even if they willingly did something, because somebody coerced them into doing that, that means that they are still a victim. And we as parents, we have to not put the pressure of them telling us every single time, oh, they'll come. Oh, my kid is strong. Oh, I don't have to worry about that. That doesn't apply. We cannot use that mentality. We have to talk to them. It's free. It is so free. By us telling them that they matter, by us teaching kids that they are a victim, we've caught 2 pedophiles behind that. Sometimes people just don't know. We cannot expect every single victim to speak up if we don't prepare them for that. Who knows the percentage of victims that actually speak up? It's less than 40% actually say something, and that's female. Well, what about our guys? Our guys never, y'all suffer. We have to speak up. We have to let these kids know that they have resources, that they matter, that they are loved, and that it's okay to have a bad day. Do we encourage them to show themselves? No. We don't want you to show yourselves online. But if you do, we have resources for you, and we can correct you into not making that decision again. We just really, truly thank you all for coming. We truly do. Because it means you all care. And it means another life will be saved if they're ever in that same circumstance. Thank you. Do you all have any questions? I know that was a lot. It was a lot. But we're here to answer any questions, because what we ask of you is that gray card that you have, give it to somebody under 18. That red card that you have, give it to our college kids, our seniors that are over 18. We forget about our freshman babies sometimes. And that yellow card is for you, because we urge kids to go to a trustworthy adult, and you never know, you may be that trustworthy adult, and you need to know what to do. Any questions at all? We're an open book. Yes.
So were you guys monitoring James's activities with like outside tools like Bark or something that would allow you to go in and just see his activity outside of what he shows you? And do you think that that may have like been able to, because I want to do that.
So, you got it?
So, we didn't use any of those apps or whatever. I personally would go down into James's room or wherever he was, and I would unplug his headset, listen to who he's talking to, listen to the conversations they're having. Every now and then, we would pick his phone up and go through his phone and whatever. There was never nothing. His whole childhood, he pretty much was a good kid. He never gave us reason to believe there was ever anything going on. So we never had to think of taking extra steps. And even this last incident that he got involved in, it still wouldn't have necessarily raised a red flag if it didn't have nudity involved. Because, like I said, we know all of his friends pretty much. If we didn't grow up with him, we knew him from the neighborhood. We saw him at school and functions and whatnot. So monitoring his stuff more than what we did, it was never something we had to do.
And you have to also take notice that James was 17 and a half. So some things wouldn't apply or he would be merging out. Now, also, with that being said, I see you. With that also being said is we do encourage Bark or any other system. now that we're on the other end, we have backed that up. We, in the state of Ohio, work with Lieutenant John Houston, who helped pass a law anonymously called the Social Media Parental Act that requires social media to get parental consent for anyone under 16. However, that was stopped, and Ohio was sued by what's called NetChoice, who represents TikTok, Google, Metaverse, which is Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and Twitter, and put a stop to that requirement. So, and lastly, if your kid is 12 going on 13, and they have a phone, please note that once they turn 13, Google emails them directly and says, congratulations on turning 13. You no longer need parental consent. Opt here to get out of parental consent, and then they allow them to get out. And they do send you an email, but if you're getting 100 emails, you wouldn't really pay attention. So that's why we tell you guys as well. So there's things like Bark. We do have links to that on our website that we encourage, but we also encourage communication, because that's the best way to catch those things. You're welcome.
Just from the law enforcement side, on the apps, kids are smart, and they're basically smarter than us when it comes to the phones. They know how to outsmart specific apps like Bark, parental controls, all of the above. Me personally, I have 4 children. My children are not allowed apps at all on their phone. The rule in my house is when you can pay for your own phone, then you can have an app. And I know that's a parental decision, but she is right where she talks about you need to have a conversation with your children at a very young age and continue that conversation all the time with them, because they have friends that know how to outsmart those apps. Trust me when I say they can hide it in their phone. So conversation is the best way to go.
And then, Officer Kelly, we got our foot put in our mouth with that rule, just FYI. We had told James he's not allowed to have a phone unless he paid for it. And we had a 33% rule, so he couldn't spend more than 33%, and he could pay for it. So he got his phone.
She left out the part how James had 5 grandmothers.
Yes.
So my question is, when you did your investigation and you found that he engaged with this person, this woman at first, where was she, did you ever find out where she was from? Was she from out of country?
So 3 people. So she was from Ivory Coast. The 2 people attacking him, which were 2 men, were from Ivory Coast. And the person who collected the money from James was in America. And so they take the money from the people in America, wash it, and send it over to Africa.
Tamia, how do you know that? Can you share with us what your experience was with law enforcement? How were you as parents walked through the investigation? What supports were you offered? How did you guys get that information? And what is your relationship with law enforcement now?
I will say our relationship with law enforcement is amazing. Amazing. But to answer your question, we've only spoke about our case one time. I would rather sit here and cry in front of you than law enforcement tell me they have nothing over and over again. That would break my heart. So with that, plus I talked to you guys and I don't want to ruin our investigation. So I've been and told y'all everything, they over there at 1261. And I just don't want to do that. So the case is open. It's surprising for us. James passed on November 19th. We found out 7 in the morning, 6 in the morning, November 20th, what happened to James. November 21st, we started raising awareness and we were in schools about it. We've learned along the way. The law enforcement is in conjunction with us every time. Chief is the one who brought us out today. We were at the International Chief of Police Association. That's how we met Chief. We do presentations in conjunction with the FBI, in conjunction with the Internet Crimes Against Children, in conjunction with the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children. They support us in every way. As Chief stated earlier, more than you know is happening to our children, whether it's James' case or it is a case where there's pedophiles going after our young women and men. A lot of this is tied into human trafficking as well. It's so many things. And we as parents and the children, we tend to be embarrassed, right? A lot of people cannot come in front of you and say, hey, my son was showing himself online. That's something that I refuse to be embarrassed about, because if I sat there and was quiet, I can guarantee you 4 other kids would have been maybe lost their lives. Because we sat there and came up front and said something, literally right after 4 other kids came up. And one of the kids was in the police station, and the guy from Africa was FaceTiming him, hollering at him at that time. These kids don't know what to do, and their frontal lobe is not fully developed, so they don't think clearly. My son was very strong. I'm sorry, our son was a very, very strong child. He helped defend so many other people, and he also knew that Tim and I had his back no matter what. But he had a bad day. We think he was up for about 40 hours. And the torture that they instill on our children, it makes them think that they don't have any other decision to make. A lot of these kids who are taking their lives by suicide don't have history of depression. My son did not have history of depression or any chemical imbalance with the brain, but they are very aggressive with our boys. You know, you have to be more aggressive, and still to this day, we just met a family last weekend who their son passed away from it too. So we just have to continuously just raise awareness. But I think I answered all of your questions. Okay, all right.
This is not a question. I just want to say thank you so much for the work that you're doing, for being here. You're not just providing psychoeducation and awareness about sextortion, but you're providing invaluable resources for suicide prevention too. And I'm so sorry that you had to experience this to get to a place where the work that you're doing now is so instrumental. But you can and you are saving lives. So thank you so much for doing this work.
We're here until tomorrow at 3 in the morning. Go TV.
You could also go on Hulu. We have, was it a half hour?
Yeah.
It was like a half hour with us and another family in Michigan under Sextortion.
And then, yep. And we have some of our interviews. It's just Tim and I does, like, we're trying to do a lot of these things, so we tend to be behind on some of the things that we're not good at. And but we do have some interviews and different things of that sort. Another thing that we do when we go to visit kids is we have them scream out "I matter," and it is such an amazing sound to hear. So we have Facebook, we have Instagram. You can follow us on that as well. We're just going to continuously try to do whatever we can, but yeah. No, we can come back, but as of right now, no. Sorry. Sorry with that, but I think this was a good start.
Oh.
I probably need this. Jonathan's probably wondering. But no, thank you very much for coming. It was sitting through it a second time. Again, very, very valuable and impactful to me. And I can't even imagine. You told us how many times you're going around this year sharing your story, and you're the strongest people I've ever met. And I applaud you for putting the word out there. And again, like I said to everybody at the beginning, this is something that still happens in our community. And we need to make sure that communication is continually open between parents and kids. And I want to present you with an award that we came up with for you guys, just making a difference that you guys make in children and in adults. And I really feel that, again, I'm so appreciative that you guys answered our email and came out and were able to coordinate with the Randall Library and the Stow Police Department and come out and tell your story and continue James's story. It is very important. And I know I'm repeating myself, but I can't tell you like how impactful it was for me. I was in the back row at IACP, and I heard you loud and clear. You're a little louder. But I heard you loud and clear. Your story resonated with everybody in that room. I talked to chiefs after that, and I still talk to chiefs about it, and we all remember your story, and your voice is still being heard, and James's voice is still definitely being heard. So thank you so much. So I really appreciate you guys coming out.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. We're going to go and fight where this goes.
What's that?
We'll fight at home where it goes.
Yes. And thank you, everybody, for coming. They will be here for a couple more minutes if you do want to come up and say anything. And I appreciate everybody's time tonight for coming out. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming.